make it, so they watch the replay because it's after school.
All right.
All right, cool, man. We're live. This is the Racine Video Production Workshop, and we're here with Joel Haver, YouTube star and cool guy. Let me see if I can do this actually. So we're using this interesting software called StreamYard. So we've only done a couple of these on here. Let me see if we can. Okay, hold on. It's got some special. Let's see. Oh, that's not what I want to do. One more time. Let's see if we can get this to work. It is.
I like your hat, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Good hat.
Let's see. What the wife bought it for me. So she made a good choice. All right. How do I? Sorry, we'll just leave it like this. It'll be all right.
All right.
Cool. So let's go ahead and we'll hit up some of these questions. How long have you been on YouTube?
Probably over 15 years. I've had a lot of channels over the years. I started making stuff when I was probably 8 years old, and uploading to YouTube probably since 2006. And my latest channel is the one I've had for the last like 10 years, but I had a lot of channels building up to that.
Awesome. Hold on. Oop. That's me. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I can get this.
No worries.
I'm going to try sharing my screen so the kids can see. The lip sync was a little bit off from our end. So this will just take 1 second to.
And how many people are in the video class?
So today we have 2, 4, 5. We have 5. Or do we have 6? Or do we have? We have 4. But usually it's up to like 20 when we're doing like projects and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, the biggest we've had is I think 15. But yeah, it kind of changes. Keep these settings. Okay, here we go. This is better. Sorry about that. And then we'll do it. All right. So we have you ever missed a week? Because you do weekly videos.
So I started weekly videos about 2.5 or 3 years ago, and I don't think I missed a week. The closest I've come was when I went through some personal tragedy in my life, and I pretty well got right back on the horse because I find creating's a good way to cope with the trouble in your life. It's a good way to like either distract yourself or like make sense of it, I think. So the only time I missed a week is when my dad passed away. I think I missed a week there technically, but otherwise no.
And when did you start doing weekly?
Well, it's funny because I think it's something that's really valuable for people to do, like hold themselves to a personal metric. Because in 2015, 2016, for that year, I did a weekly short every week. And when I was doing that, it was just such a good motivator to do something. If it came down to the 7th day and you hadn't made something, you kind of have this thing in your head that's like, just do something. And sometimes the biggest creative writing block is like, the not having like a deadline or not having something pushing yourself to actually do something. And so I did it first in like 2015 for a year, and then I went back to it in 2019, and I've been doing it ever since.
Very cool. And then how long does it take to make a video?
It varies a lot. I have the animations, which I know you guys have used the tools for, and I have the some more live action stuff like real people skit stuff. And the animations take quite a bit of time, as I'm sure you guys have figured out through using the tools. An animation will take me like 40 to 60 hours. But live action will probably take me like 10 to 15 on average, and some of the shorter ones less than that.
How many keyframes do you use usually?
that depends. I've gotten more bold with the motion lately. Okay. I was very careful the first probably 10 animations I did to move very little, and now I'm kind of just allowing like my friends and actors to just go wild, and then I'm like, I'll deal with this later. And so I've had some shots that like a character moves so much it takes like 12 to 15 keyframes, but usually I try to have like most of the dialogue be pretty still, and those will usually take me like 2 or 3 per shots. And for a full video, probably 50 to 100. And I had the 12-minute RPG video, and that one took especially like that one probably took hundreds of keyframes, and that one took me like a month and a half to make. That was its own beast.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah.
So not all the so we used it. I sort of ran the software. So why don't you talk a little bit about the software that we're talking about?
It's Absinthe. It's a really cool free tool made by this team. I think they're in Europe, called Secret Weapons. And I found out about it through YouTube actually in 2019, I think. Or yeah, sometime in 2019. And people were running a little test with it, but I kind of am like, wait, you could use this to make like goofy animations. And I kind of ran with it, and I didn't think I was doing anything like crazy innovative with the tool. But then only once my channel took off did I realize, like, oh wait, this is something that no one really did before. And it was a lot of fun, kind of playing with that tool and figuring out like the limitations, because it's certainly like, as great as it is, it's like, you know, it's not going to give you everything you want, so you got to like kind of work with it in some ways, and that and sometimes accept the glitchiness of it and accept the imperfection.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was excited because it reminds me of I don't know. Have you ever seen Waking Life?
Yeah.
And so they use some type of software as well. And so I wonder how close it is, because I know my understanding for that was it sounds very similar, but they did it like back in the 90s.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
I'm
funny.
sure it was a little more manual, but
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, so it's just cool that now it's like this freeware that anyone can get access to.
Yeah, no, I love stuff like that. The team who made it reached out to me once my stuff took off, and they were really like thankful. They, especially after my tutorial video, they're like, we got so
Yeah.
many downloads, and that's really what I want to do. I want to show people that they can make stuff and they can create stuff, and I think that was a really exciting moment for me when the team reached out and they're like, our downloads just spiked by like 200%, like 200 times, like two. So I'm like, oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, it makes sense, because I that's how we found you. Is that we just I think I was just looking for rotoscope styles and kind of like ways, basically what it does, trying to like cut the corners so that the students could, you know, do the tracing or around the image. And then because I've been actually teaching animation for a long time, mostly for like middle school kids, and so this thing's like kind of a game changer in a lot of ways to like really give them a tool to play around with.
Absolutely. It's very accessible. Like, I've had people who never have done like drawing even before, like, try it out, and they're like, oh, this is something I'm able to do. You know, it's like it gives you, and what's exciting about animation and why I really use it primarily is it opens up a world of possibilities that like you don't have to consider the production of. You know, it's like you could execute all your sci-fi ideas, your fantasy ideas, you know, stuff that would be like either too time consuming or too costly to put together in real life. You could really sell it in animation, and having tools that make animation very streamlined is very exciting for that reason, because it's like anyone in their home can now make their own Star Wars. They can make their own Lord of the Rings or whatever you want to make.
Yeah, and it's been funny because I think we've done 6 films total, short films. And it's all, every time it's like, all right, no special effects in this one. And then sure enough, as soon as the student will present the script, and it'll be like, and then his eyes are dilated. It's like, oh, dude. So now I have something where I'll be like, all right, well, we'll have to do it this way. That way it saves me having to do it all on my extra time.
Making little creative problems for yourself is half the fun, though. Having to figure out how to accomplish things that are in your head and make them happen on the screen. That's a huge part of the fun for me, at least.
Yeah, I think that's most of the students here. Yeah, I think the same thing. So going with just the live action, what is your production process for like one of your live action shorts?
I'm very loose and minimal, and I'm not sure how many kids in your class are planning to go to film school. I went to film school, and I don't want to talk anyone out of it. So, but my main thing is film school will teach you very regimented, classical ways of filmmaking, that you need a big crew, you need a big set and time, and I've sort of whittled that back down to the home movie, which I'm sure everyone has done, you know, more than ever. just grab your phone or something and just film something with your friends. And I've sort of found a way to make that look good just by, getting good at cinematography through practice, getting good at like sound design through practice. And I'm a one man crew for all my live action stuff, with the exception of like if my friend needs to hold the camera while I'm on camera. I just have lavalier microphones, and it's all improvised as well. No scripting, no pre planning. I literally right before this call just finished filming something alone. Have you guys seen any of the old movies ones where I like it's stylized like an old movie?
No, we watched a bunch yesterday, but we didn't end up watching any of those.
So I just did one like that right now.
Okay.
I use like rear projection for those. That's a lot of fun. Just set up
Cool.
a projector is a really fun tool to mess with because it has a different quality than say a green screen. It has a very real lighting to it, and it has a very real presence that a green screen doesn't have. And I've used that many times. So if you have a projector laying around of any sort, it's fun to mess around. I've used it to like emulate cop lights flashing like on a wall or something, like so the police are outside. You could use it to make a party. Just go on YouTube, Google like rainbow strobe or something, and shoot it in the room, and it will like make it look like a party's going on. There's a lot of like really like tools that people either already have, or they're pretty accessible tools that can really be pushed and experimented with.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah. We did. We haven't, I'd show you, but it might do a weird feedback, like the smartboardy projector. And so the only thing we had done was where we got like a video from YouTube from like behind a car. So it shows like the trees going away, and then having like somebody like running, like that kind of effect.
Well, that's like classic. That's classic rear projection. That's like what they actually used to do in like old movies and stuff. And that's a lot of fun.
Compare that, your production process, to your animated films. I imagine those have to be a little bit more at least planned out.
There's I never write anything, which makes me very unique. I don't think some people wouldn't expect that. I've never written a script in the last like 4 years, 5 years. I usually have some sort of layout in my brain, but like even then, like whole thing, it's all improvised. Like I'll meet up with like my friend Trent, who acts in some of the animations. Like him and I will just meet up and like, spitball until we figure stuff out. Like if you've seen the like 12-minute RPG one, like, we had some of those ideas laid out, but like the old man and the rat was done on the spot while we were filming. We're like, oh, we should do something with him. And we're like, what would he be doing? And, the way I really like Absinthe is it's allows for improv animating. Like you just shoot like an improv, like short, like you would any other thing. And then you animate over it. So my process isn't that different beyond the post-production, where I'm just working hours on drawing backgrounds and stuff like that.
So with that, you don't do any kind of storyboarding? You just gotta have the frame in your head?
Yeah, no, yeah. I've definitely gotten rid of pre-production in my process because I know how much pre-production could put you in like a writer's block state. It could put you in a state where you're always trying to perfect what you're working on. You don't want to start making it till you have the idea perfect, but like truth be told, the idea comes to life when you're making it, and it'll kind of find itself. And so I'm very very like production oriented. I'm just like, let's just get together with a camera, improvise, and we'll figure it out from there.
So do you record your improvisations, or are you like improvising and then once you got it and then you shoot it?
No. What you see is us improvising on camera. It's always improvised on camera. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then I assume it has to be at least somewhat different when you do your features then. Is it kind of, what's that production process like?
It's like making like 30 shorts in a row, and you just mentally string them together. Really, I just did the one with my friend Dex Flame, and that one was the same thing. What's so fun about an improv feature is it's almost like a puzzle, because what we would do is you shoot a scene or two, and then in your head you're like making a timeline, and you're like, okay, so we need to get the character from here to here. So like, what are the scenes in between? You film those scenes, and maybe they need scenes in between. And then, it's kind of just like filming a bunch of shorts as the same characters, and connecting them together through some emotional arc that you're able to see as you make it, yeah, improvised everything. It's no writing. And that's just very atypical, but I think it's a really fun process. And I think it relates more to how people create content on like TikTok or YouTube these days. I don't think
Mhm.
they have big meetings planning them out. I think it's very much a spur of the moment, capture the lightning in a bottle kind of vibe online that I really like and I lean into.
So when you do the features, is it like over a weekend, or like what's the timeline kind of on one of those?
Uh, it's very different. Like I have some more personal long form like documentary stuff that happened over like a year or like a couple months. But the narrative films, like the one I just did with Dax, we shot in 2 weeks. And I have one with my friend Mason called Forget About Everything for a while that we shot in 6 days. It's very it varies, but I think you could shoot a feature in a day if you want. You could shoot it over a year if you want. A lot of the most famous filmmakers we look up to, like their first movie they shot on weekends, like while they were working jobs and stuff. They just get together with their friends. Like I know David Lynch did that with Eraserhead, and Christopher Nolan with Following. And yeah, I think the biggest thing facing people who are having a hard time making stuff is the lack of time and energy because of all their other obligations. But I think pushing through that and actually using your time to create will, like, you'll come out the other side so happy you did.
And someone actually asked about writer's block. Do you ever get writer's block, even if you're using that process?
I think I do, to the extent that, like, if I'm having a day where I'm like, okay, I really want to film something and I'm trying to force myself to film something, it won't come to me.
Mm.
Um, I think looking for the ideas organically as you like talk to friends, like a lot of my ideas just come from conversations. Some of them I like wake up with, or like I had a dream about, some of them you get by, you watch a movie and you think of a funny parody, or you think of a funny way to play on like a trope. But I think forcing yourself to like come up with an idea it will only like sometimes spiral you deeper into the writer's block. I don't think I've ever I think I've gotten really good at once I've like set out to film, I'm doing it. Once I have an idea, I'm like, I got to make this ASAP, while I still have the juices flowing, while I still am really excited about it. So I guess that's the best way to avoid it. Just like hop on it while you still have the passion for the idea.
And then how do you schedule your day, or what does a day for Joel look like?
It's pretty random because I'm also doing a lot of collabs with different YouTubers and different creators. So my days are mostly, I've gotten better about giving myself time to hang out. For a long time, I was a workaholic in ways, and I would just work, work, work. And I've allowed myself some days each week to hang out now. But what usually, if I'm with like friends, we'll like, shoot a video for each of our channels. And in between time, I'll be editing and like, working on upkeeping the channel, responding to messages, comments. But yeah, I'd say once you are supporting yourself on your art, there is a really exciting thing that happens where your life becomes very your own creation, and I think rolling with that and not like over scheduling or over planning is kind of the better way to go than having a strict, like, this is my filming day, this is my release day, this is my, I think allowing yourself to feel and do what you need to do that day is really healthy for your mental state.
And then do you work on multiple projects at once then?
Yeah, in the case of an animation, it'll be worked on over the course of weeks or sometimes like a month. and I'll always be working on that kind of in the background while I'm like still releasing live action shorts. And funnily enough, the live action shorts will almost be like breaks for me from the animation, even though those are also work and editing. But uh yeah, there's times where I have a lot stacked up and times where I like today I just film one thing and it's the only thing I have shot just because I cleared my backlog, you know. But yeah, it varies. It varies. Sometimes I'm just working on one thing, like I film something, edit it, put it out, film something, edit it, put it out. And sometimes I like, gather a bunch of footage and then I have stuff to work on for a while.
I'm sure. Hold on. Let me just double check. So do you when you don't have a date that you release? You just kind of make sure you release it within the week, or do you have a day where you like drop every Monday or whatever they?
I'm very antsy, so I just release the day after I finish it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I like to upload like generally the same time of day, so I usually do the morning to noon around then. So if I finish it the night before or something, I don't post it that night, but I always just release it the day after I finish it. And you know, sometimes that results in me having like 2 or 3 uploads in a week just because I'm like getting a lot done. But I think that's good. You know, I think a lot of my friends that I see making stuff are like sticking to like Monday uploads, but then they like kind of give themselves too much time sometimes to like fall out of the passion because they're like, okay, I finished this. Now I'm gonna wait 5 days to upload it, and then in those 5 days they don't feel the pressure to make something else or keep creating. And I think that I don't know. Upload days work for some people, but for me, I just would hate sitting on something that I have ready to upload, you know?
Totally. Then once you upload, do you promote it in any way, or did you used to promote it?
It's tough. Self-promotion is so, like, hard to do online, and I think it's silly that, like, there's this whole vibe that we shouldn't be proud of our work, you know? I think there's a huge, like, anti-pride thing that is, like there's an extent where you're being boastful, and I get that, but there's an extent where you should be happy and want people to see what you spent time on, and, I think right now the internet, like if you try to share your stuff on Reddit, you'll sometimes face a lot of backlash just because you're trying to share your stuff. So for because I was creating weekly stuff for like 2 years before I had any viewers really. You know, I did it every week for 2 years and uh it finally took off. But I had like 3,000 subscribers last November, so like just over a year ago. And so it went from 3,000 to 1.3 million in a couple like half a year. But and when I was creating when I was smaller, I gave up on promoting because I knew how valuable it would be to like really focus on creating for the love of it and having the belief that if I do that enough, I'll make great stuff and it'll get noticed by, you know, because I had fans just organically from friends and like other channels I watch that watch my stuff, you know, like there's a lot of great ways to build like little communities of small channels or small creators when you're still like not getting the views you want. But I think yeah, I didn't promote much and I still don't because now I kind of don't need to because I have enough fans that it'll get around. But I think you can. I think you could be strategic about it. Like I've helped friends like by like posting their stuff for them. So it's not self-promotion. And you know, the Reddit eventually punishes that as well because they just wind up thinking you're that person. But but I think that's my biggest complaint with YouTube as a small creator is that there's no way to organically get your stuff seen on the platform. You kind of need attention elsewhere. You know, you need to have a successful video on our videos or something, or you need to have something go like off on like I don't know, Tumblr, Twitter. You kind of need it because YouTube just pushes down like stuff that isn't getting traction. You know, it only promotes stuff that is. So uh, I think YouTube. I've always said YouTube needs its own Reddit page. It needs something on the homepage where people upvote and downvote, like based on categories and stuff. But maybe someday.
Yeah, there's a cool Absinthe Facebook group that's been awesome because I've been learning about all these creators that are using the software,
Mm.
and so I wish it was bigger. I kind of think it's hidden a little bit in the Facebook world. Do you do any tactics with like or like using keywords or any of those other like SEO sort of things, or at least at any point or currently?
Not usually. The furthest I go is like as far as tags and stuff in the description. I just like, link my friends who are like, I put my friend's name and my name who are in it in hopes that like it'll recommend like that my stuff with that friend to that person, and so it like if they like that friend or that actor, they'll see them in more stuff and maybe check out their stuff. But I'm so bad about marketing, and maybe it's maybe a miracle that I even did take off for that reason. I didn't think about it much, but I think that with enough consistency and practice, and like if you get good enough at doing what you want to make above like trying to like get attention and trying to appease people, I think people will latch onto it. I think like people's like sense of humor, people's like artistic like ideas aren't that like insular. I don't think there's ideas that no one's gonna relate to or no one's gonna laugh at. I think if you're laughing at your stuff, there's probably millions of other people who would too. It's just a matter of time and recognition.
Kind of jumping back a little bit with writing, with your documentary, what was that? I assume most of that was in the editing, but did you have like a ton of footage that you just went through? I'm thinking of like the one where you with the van driving through across the country.
Yeah, that one I was sort of scattered on. That one I shot uh quite a bit for, but I didn't shoot as much as I wanted because I was like
Mm.
in my head while I was shooting it, I was like, oh, somewhere down the line, this might be a feature, but it was sort of a background project. And I I I wound up like getting to LA and staying here for so long that I kind of stopped filming for that project. And eventually I think the lesson there is eventually it's okay to be like, okay, this can just be a short, if you're planning for something to be a longer project, it's okay to just eventually be like, I'll just edit what I have into a short. I could make this work as a shorter, you don't have to drag on projects forever. You could always just find ways to release them.
So was that a lot of like, oh, I should film this real quick, or was that a little bit more planned out than usual?
No, that was pretty well spontaneous. It was just when I had downtime or if I was with a friend that I'm like, because it's tough. I always want my documentary stuff to be real, but there's certain people that like have a hard time being real on camera. So I made sure uh like I was careful to only like film with people that I knew wouldn't be uncomfortable, like just having real conversations on camera. And because it's weird if I was with like my 60, 70-year-old aunt and I'm like, hey, can we sit on camera and talk? It might be harder, but
Yeah,
that was kind of my regret with that project. I wanted to get more people, but I also didn't want to impose or like seem like phony because
yeah.
yeah.
I do a little bit of documentary stuff, and I find usually having to like do like an hour and like the half an hour mark is when they'll finally like forget that there's a camera there. And so
Mhm.
that's why I was just like, dude, did he just take like hours of footage to get all these like really genuine, conversations?
Yeah, most of the conversations were pretty long. They were probably like
Okay.
15 to 20 minutes on average, but with separate shots and like different conversations with each person. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you find one of the things that I really like about your channel is that you do have a variety. Do you find that hurts your channel, or do you think it hurts your channel? I should say.
I think algorithmically, like it does. I think the way YouTube is training its AI is to like, so if it's like, okay, Joel Haver, the thumbnail looks animated and it's getting these comments about animations, it's going to recommend that to a lot more people because those videos historically do a lot better at doing like a live action or a documentary or like a feature length just isn't going to be recommended to the same amount of people for that reason. And I wish that wasn't the case, but I also think, you know, I I would be a lot less happy only doing what the algorithm wanted. I think you can't sacrifice your happiness over numbers. and I'm still beyond ecstatic that like most of my live action get like at least like 200,000. Like that's a
Yeah,
crazy amount
that's
of people
crazy.
like you
Yeah.
that fill like multiple stadiums. So it's like that you can't complain about that. But yeah, I think variety for the sake of like your creative like passion and not draining yourself and not getting sick of your art is so much more important than like, cranking out the one thing that it has worked. I think you always need to push yourself in exciting new directions and try new things and give yourself breaks. So yeah, yeah.
Changing gears a little bit, what hardware do you use as far as cameras and stuff like that and mics?
I use a Blackmagic Pocket
Oh, nice.
4K. But it's as far as like getting that cinematic like film look, it's probably one of the more affordable ones. It's still a bit of an investment. It's like 1,500. I I put it on a credit card when I was broke, which is not life advice, but I think it is like if you bet on yourself, just make sure you're gonna, you know, be a good horse in the race, I guess. But like I put it on a credit card for a long time and I accrued a lot of interest on it, but it paid off because it finally worked. But I have a Blackmagic 4K and just I have a Zoom H4n for audio, and I just record into that with lavs.
And then do you use a wired lav, or do you have a whatever it's
I use
called?
wireless.
Wireless? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried with the wire, or is it not worth?
Not the kind that needs to be connected directly to the device just because but you can't like mine has a wire for like the microphone to the receiver,
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not connected to the yeah. Those
Uh,
are good for like interview those, like the wired ones, those are good for interviews and stuff like that and stuff where there's not much movement or
do you have a few of those that you use, or is it usually just?
I have 2, so at most shorts, I'm like, I got 2 people mic'd up at all times, and it gets a little complicated when you have 3 or 4 people because you just gotta keep trading the mic off and then be smart in the editing to, like, only use the takes that, like, they have good audio on and stuff, but yeah.
You don't use any of the cameras other than the Blackmagic?
No, I've played around with, like, shooting on, like, a VHS. I've done a lot of that in the past, and I think if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, that's the one of the best things to do because it not only does it have a very, like, cohesive aesthetic, it instantly has this feeling to it, but, yeah, what I did for, like, years while I was shooting on VHS, like, my first 2 features were shot on like, handheld VHS cameras, and, what I did is you go on Craigslist and you'll find people giving them away or like $5, $10 for a camera. And I just, I stacked up like 10 or 12 just asking around like my
Cool.
Facebook like community and stuff. And it cost me like nothing. And you only need a couple of them to work well enough for, and one of them lasted me like a year and a half, 2 years. It shot 2 whole movies and it was just a JVC little high 8 tape camera. And I think it's fun to play with different formats and like old like technology. And but even your phone is great. I've shot quite a bit on my phone, not stuff on my main channel, but with like side projects and just funny little skits I do with my friends. Phones are like the best tool ever, especially because like the iPhone 13 just looks like amazing with the like cinematic mode. And yeah.
Totally. You mentioned your other channels. Do you know how many, or like what were they, just other projects, or how'd that work, and how'd you end up doing mostly on this channel, on your main channel?
It was random stuff over the years. It was like I started with like a channel that was shared between my brother and some friends and I, and we just did some like goofy like old stick figure animations on there and stuff, and then eventually, I did like a couple web series that had their own channels in like middle school and then one in college. Um, I did some what did I do? I did a gaming channel, which is funny. I
Oh,
had a channel where I did like I don't know if you know Gary's Mod, but I did Gary's Mod animations. Those were a lot of fun. That was in high school. I was just always trying stuff, and most of the time it was more just chasing some creative idea than trying to make the next thing that worked. And ultimately, the channel I currently use is just like a nice place that I could finally just post whatever I want, kind of, and it's like tied to my name, so it's very specifically like my channel, and yeah.
Did you ever bring over any of the other videos from other channels over to your main one?
I did a web series called I'm Going to Be Famous,
Yeah.
which was I edited from the series format to like a movie, but otherwise no, a lot of that old stuff just exists on the old channels. It's relics from another time. There was some really good stuff. I think it'd be funny to talk about it sometime in some capacity, but yeah.
Sort of a businessy question we got is, do you make most of your money from Patreon, your store, or the YouTube ad revenue?
It's sort of a tie between Patreon and ad revenue. Um, the merch I mainly use just to support my friends. I've each merch drop, I kind of have a different friend design it, and then I kind of use that to
Oh,
support
cool.
them. But more so, yeah, ad revenue and Patreon. Patreon's really nice to have because it kind of gives me the comfort in not having to do sponsor reads and stuff. And I don't blame anyone who does sponsor reads. It's like good money, and if you got to support yourself, or why not do it? But I just don't like sponsored. Like, I don't think it fit with most of my stuff. Um, but it's just it's a matter of how quickly yours takes off, how much it supports you. But Patreon gives me that comfort to not have to read for like a VPN or Squarespace or something every video. And I think that's why Patreon is probably something I'll always use.
Totally. What has changed in your life since your channel took off?
Certain things, I think finally having that comfort, that I think that initial recognition that my years of work were worth it. And like not only that, but people went back and watched a lot of my backlog of stuff that never got views, and people are like, oh, he was always making really good stuff. I think that was a really good feeling to see that, like, okay, so I wasn't insane all the nights I was wondering like, why is no one watching. But
Yeah.
I also don't think you should put too much worth on the viewership. I think you should create for creation's sake first, which is hard, especially if you need to support yourself, or you want to have more time to create. It's hard to like not pay attention to the struggle of it. But yeah, I think that that confirmation that it was, it worked out. And there was some negative things. When you start earning more money than you usually do, there's a lot of paperwork, and like health insurance changes, and annoying stuff. You need to get an accountant, and and some people get weird if you become like successful. Some people who used to be close to you might kind of push you away, and kind of a weird. So that I think that's a warning I'd give to anyone. I had some friends get kind of strange that like suddenly I was like, you know, bigger, and maybe in a jealousy way, maybe in just I don't know, a way that they were hoping that they too could have what I had. But I think there's always cautionary tales with like success, and I'm not even hugely successful in the way that like a movie star would be, but just being famous, I think it is like overpowers being like wealthy for a lot of people, and that fame is like what drives their jealousy. But yeah.
If you were to do something else for a living besides YouTube, what would it be?
Definitely something creative. It's hard to picture me not doing something video or film related, but I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do that for a job beyond making my own stuff. So
Mm.
like the filmmaker Werner Herzog came to our college when I was in film school. He came to Pratt Institute, and the funniest thing he said is he said like never work a job in film in your life. He said you get more life experience from like working a construction job or working like you know so like life like jobs that like force you to like see people and see things and try new things. So I think in the regards of like earning a living, I wouldn't do film if it wasn't for my own stuff, just because I think it ties it too closely to like other frustrations and other anxieties you have around work and having a boss and having a, having to answer to someone. And I think tying your art to that is a very dangerous, like slippery slope.
Totally. So I'm gonna ask one more questions and then I'm gonna let you guys answer questions. So if you guys want to come up, so there's not that weird lull. Zeke, why don't you come up here, Zeke, and then Jacob, why don't you come up next? Why don't you come on up, because that way, and just stand over here. So I'm gonna ask a question quick so they can. What's that? Oh, that's fine. Yeah. So you mentioned film school. Would you talk a little bit more on whether you would recommend it or not, or what was that like?
I think the biggest deciding factor for people has to be the money. I think that the amount of debt you get in going to college is like terrifying, and it makes you have to like work and pay it off for your whole life sometimes. And I think you really have to think long and hard if that's something you want and if it's something you're ready for. I was fortunate enough to have like a lot of my debt kind of waived through scholarships and different things. But even then I wouldn't advise somebody who is like already struggling to like put themselves in more debt in the hopes of like getting a job or a career. That there's so many opportunities to like, learn and show yourself, prove your worth, I guess, if you want to put it that way, online. Like there's so many skills you can learn on a computer, whether it be like in like 3D animation, like programming, whether, there's stuff that they don't even look for a college degree. They certainly don't look for a film degree. And film school, I'm pretty negative on, but I will say that you meet a lot of other people who are interested in making films. You have some great professors who like will give you guidance and like, really like give you good feedback on your stuff. And it gives you sort of like a couple years safety net to like not feel guilty about spending your time creating. I think there is like a guilt, like, oh, I'm doing this impractical dream rather than like a more practical career. And I think if you do go to film school, definitely chase that dream as hard as you can, because the saddest thing I saw is a lot of people were very apathetic in film school. They weren't creating that much, they weren't using the tools given to them that much. And they kind of wasted their time there. They passed, they graduated right alongside with me, but they didn't have any like skills or like any like emboldened passion to show for it. So that was disheartening. So if you do go and you're willing to take on the debt, just make sure that you're gonna use the time to make as much stuff as you possibly can.
I'm gonna let. So go ahead, and when you go up, sit down. You can say your name and then ask your question.
Hi, I'm Jacob.
Hey, Jacob.
So my question is, are there any videos that you regret making? Not because they're controversial, but because they make you cringe a little.
Absolutely. I don't know if regret's the right word, because I wouldn't go back and undo it. But there's definitely a lot of stuff like from my like middle school, high school years that I look back on and I'm like, ooh, that didn't age well, or that, that doesn't align with my current sense of humor. But I think I always say if you look at your old stuff and you kind of, feel embarrassed by it, it means your old self would look at your new stuff and probably be impressed. Like, oh my God, I've grown so much, I've really changed. So I try not to regret things as much as like just understand their context and be like, I was young, I was different, or, so yeah, not regret, but I do understand exactly what you're saying, where you watch your stuff and you're like, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is David, and my question is, how do you come up with ideas for your videos?
I think They usually stem just from like a brain seed. Like you get like an idea in your head, and if you focus on that idea enough, you could kind of grow it into a bigger tree of an idea, using a really lame metaphor. But I think they usually stem from like a funny conversation you have with a friend. You know, if you just talk, like, listen, like, kind of be aware when you're talking with your friends, especially your friends that like you really laugh with and have like a fun time talking to, or people online you talk to that make you laugh. Um, really like pay attention to like the things you say, because I feel like just human conversation is inherently really funny. And if you use that for material, or you build off that, you could really have a lot of great ideas that way.
All right.
Yeah. Do you find that like do you find coming up with ideas is a hard part of the process for you, or?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. I think don't put your ideas in a box is the best advice I could give, because you always want to think of like a punchline or something like clever, or like a clever observation, and instead it's okay to do a video where just two people talk to each other. It's okay to do a video where it's like just like based around a goofy character, but he's not like relatable, because I think a lot of like online humor is trying really hard to be relatable, and sometimes it's hard. Like, so many ideas have been explored already that like you don't need to be relatable in that sense. You could just create like a scene. If you're having a hard time coming up with something clever, just come up with something that feels like real, or feels like a uniquely express something about yourself that you feel only you could express. Yeah.
Do you want to tell them what the video you made?
So then we made a video about Dr. Martin Luther King giving out a speech about something. I forgot. And then we found a video online, and then we were just kind of like tracing over him when he was talking for most of the time, and then we searched some like images on the side to put on while he was talking. And then we made like a short animation with that, with the drawings.
Yeah, I think I was told about that. So you used Absinthe for that, the program that kind of paints over the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's really cool to create sort of digital art in ways like that. You could use the old stuff to inspire something new, or inspire something very unique, like old footage of Martin Luther King, or old footage of anything in history. Like you could pull from the past just as easily as you could pull from the present nowadays. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, David.
No problem.
Can we go on that way so you can put the words?
Hi, my name is Ezekiel. So I got a question. Are you ever worried about like your channel or your videos or anything just plummeting out of nowhere?
I think there is sort of this like idea like, oh, like if a video does worse suddenly, it's gonna be your downfall. I think there's a thought in your head, if like, because YouTube has this I think it's a very toxic feature where if you upload, it will tell you like how your video is performing compared to your other videos. It'll say like it's like, and if it's like 9 out of 10 out of the last 10 videos, you feel kind of crummy. You're like, oh, why is no one watching this? And I think it comes back to not letting yourself get discouraged by numbers, because if you start trying to appeal to people, the people you appeal to aren't going to be longtime fans. The longtime fans are the ones who will like tune in for all your craziest ideas. And there's been times like just even lately, like my channel's not doing like the same peak it did when it first took off, but I'm not letting that get to me too much. I'm not letting that sway my creative output, because if I did, I would be more unhappy with myself than if I just like accepted the lower numbers but kept making what I wanted to make.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressures online to like appeal to like the broadest range of people possible, but there's so many people online that even if you create something that's more niche or specific, I think you could still reach a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them about the video you made?
Oh, so speaking of the topic of the question before, like that little idea seed kind of thing. So, I made this short film, like a short film where the whole concept is that like take the concept of life as a video game to the extreme. So that's the whole concept, and I like how it turned out and everything. Because when things go like in the editing process for me, when things go exactly how you planned, is I don't know if it's just me. It's just nice to see it come together.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a great feeling, especially if it's like as you pictured it in your brain from the start. Or sometimes it's even better, you know, you're able to execute something and surprise yourself in a way that's even better. And I 100% relate. The editing is really where it comes to life for me. It's where I'm like, okay, this is really working. You know, like everything I shot made sense, and you know, and sometimes you don't really have everything you need to edit, but you could still puzzle it together and find a way to like present it. You know, you could still find a way to make it, and then you're like, oh, this new way is even better. You know, that process of discovery as well as like validation of your ideas is really exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Oh, okay. Yeah, Ezekiel is the one who just came on with Life the Video Game. He did a lot of what would you call those? What are they called? The thing in between.
Off the top of the head.
Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head all the time.
Yeah, those
Like loading screens and stuff like that, and then
yeah.
And then it was like
with the little tips and stuff, or with the little spinny.
Like he's waiting for the bus, and the bus does like a doot, 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 doot,
yeah.
And then he got in a fight with the bull, and it goes into like a battle sequence. And so I think he's great and stuff. Hold on, let me just see. So would you? I got a couple more questions, and then I'll see if anyone else has a question, and then let's leave this one for last. So, do you think, just having worked with a lot of people with your collaborations, do you think most people do pretty well with the improv? Because our production process is kind of like the standard, probably what you did in film school, of like come up with the idea, and then they vote on it, and then they script it, you know, storyboard, like this sort of like standard process. Do you think? I'm curious if you think most people are able to kind of just do the improv.
I think my feeling is improv is actually the best thing for people who haven't acted before. I think people get very in their head over like scripted words and hitting the lines right and saying them exactly right. And I think something everyone does is they improv every day. You know, your life is improv. You're making it up. You're responding. You're reacting. People have like this whole skill set of improv that they don't even realize just by virtue of having conversations and meeting people and you know, presenting yourself a certain way. And I'd sooner do improv if I was like working with somebody I never worked with before than writing, just because I have that confidence that if I give them the leeway to be somewhat like themselves or play a version of themselves, people already know how to play themselves. You know, people already know how to like run with that. And then the more comfortable they get doing that, then they could start to kind of play more extreme characters or something a little less like themselves. But yeah, I definitely think improv is like something most people given like if you create an environment that feels creative and comfortable for them, I think it's something most people could like thrive in.
Have you ever had that backfire?
Not really. No. I'm usually, it usually pays off. You know, I usually like have a lot of fun, and people have a blast working with me because like improv allows me to keep my like filming really quick. You know, like most of my videos will be shot in 1 to 2 hours usually, and it's just like because you're rolling, then you're done. You know, there's no like setup, there's no like you know redos. You just keep running and keep like figuring out the scene, and it always feels exciting. And I think that's something people always have a blast, you know, whether it be like, you know, my family who I've made a lot of stuff with, like my cousins and uncles and aunts, and um, or if it's some like a more seasoned actor who I, you know, got like met through a casting website or through a friend's film. If like either way, like they always come to me and they're like, it's such a blast making stuff, just because it is low stakes, it's low pressure. There's no execution of like some guaranteed vision. There is more like a, a playground to like explore characters, and a playground to like explore funny ideas.
I meant to cover this earlier, so I'm going to jump back a little bit and then forward. Is software that you use? What software do you use?
I use Adobe Premiere pretty well for everything. I even assemble my animations in there. I'm pretty one track. I like to keep it simple, my workflow. I use Photoshop to make assets and do my animating, like drawing the characters, drawing the backgrounds, and then I use Premiere to edit, and Absinthe obviously for the animations. But beyond that, that's my entire process.
So do you edit your audio as well in just in Premiere, or is it not really too much?
Yeah, I do all my audio in Premiere too. I've been like in film school, they introduce you to audio specific programs like Pro Tools or something, but I just always find them so not user friendly. And I'm somebody, the way I edit is everything at once. You know, I do video, audio, color grading all at once. Like I'll be tweaking the color grade, then I'll add a sound effect, then I'll like shorten a clip. You know, like I'm always kind of figuring out the entire picture. I'm not taking it like step by step. So doing it all in Premiere just makes that so much easier.
I'm trying to think if I don't think we kind of did some color grading, I guess, for the Western, but do you spend a lot of time on color grading, or do you kind of just pick like a LUTs or like a like a thing and go with it?
It's a good chunk of time, because I always manually tweak it and adjust it, get the tint and temperature right, and get, you know, make it look a certain way. So I'd say each video I spend at, you know, an hour plus on color grading, because I shoot very flat, which gives you more dynamic range to work with the color. So it's always a part of the process for me.
And then do you add because you'll often have like I don't know what you call it, retro,
The VHS or
yeah, I can't think of what they call that. If you have it on not on purpose, they call it whatever, like I don't, anyways, the term. But do you do that in Premiere, or do you do that in other software?
Yeah, everything I use for effects, like as far as like making it look like an old VHS camera, if I use something like that, or like the film grain look I put on most of my stuff, that's all just plugins in Premiere. Like I use Film Convert, which is like it emulates old film stocks, and it also doubles as a color grading software where you could tweak your you know, color grade your footage. So I use that for pretty well everything as well.
Have you thought about, now's not really the greatest time, but have you thought about doing live events? Is that down the road?
Live? I think so.
Stand up or anything like that?
I've always considered if I got a bunch, like if I like announced some sort of fan meetup or something, I'd always just like I'd find a way to work it into a video. You know, it'd be fun. Like if you have 100 people, think of all the fun ideas you could do with 100 people. You know, you could have an angry mob, or you could have like, you know, an audience for something. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I'd find some way to make everyone get involved creatively if I did something like that.
I was thinking more like Tim and Eric. I assume you're familiar with them. Like they did like a show where they would take around and be on, you know, like they were on as if a live version of their videos.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing something like that?
Yeah, I've considered like I think it comes back to I'd still want to get the audience involved in some capacity, but I think I don't know. I wouldn't want a dynamic where I'm the show. You know, I wouldn't want that dynamic. I'd want something more interactive. I think something more creative for everyone. So yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah, totally. Okay, last two questions. Biggest advice for smaller YouTubers?
Just keep at it. I think it's really discouraging when like your stuff isn't taking off, but if you have the power to push through discouragement, you're going to be able to push through anything. You know, if you like face like 20 videos in a row with like 20 views, you're still going, that's like the best sign ever that like you're gonna like find some sort of happiness creating. I don't like to promise people they're gonna find like a million subscribers like if they keep going for like a year or two. I think it's just there's too much people doing it nowadays for that to be practical. But I do think if you push through the discouragement, you're either going to just have a great time making stuff, or you will find some level of like success or an audience who enjoys your stuff. So fight through the discouragement.
What do you think it was that sort of pushed sort of your videos into where the mix of probably the algorithm and whatever, where it started being watched?
Yeah, it was definitely just the perfect storm of like 2 videos taking off, because I did the first RPG video, which somebody shared on Reddit, and it went to the top of the videos page, and that got a big amount of views, like 100,000 views, which was like my most views for the time, and then I followed that up quickly, like the week after. I hopped right on doing another animation to like kind of like keep that strike while the iron was hot, and that wound up doing really well too. And then I think between those doing like being viewed by a lot of people and people going through my backlog, I think I just got kind of hoisted into the algorithm, and that was like a huge spike. That was like the most views I've ever had to date. It was just like everyone watching all my stuff. And I think there's strategic things you can do if you like do hit that like lightning in a bottle thing, and so like people really respond to your thing. I think don't do it just to appease them, but definitely like in my case, like I did another animation right after an animation took off, but it was an idea I already had and wanted to do. I just never like thought it was worth the time, because I'm just like these take so much effort. But then that I saw people like them, I'm like, okay, maybe the effort's worth it,
Totally. All right, last one. Where's the best people to find you and see what you're working on?
Always just youtube.com, Joel Haver. I don't even think that's the actual address of my channel, but it's just search Joel Haver on YouTube. Yeah, my channel used to be called Making Shorts, so I think my address is still YouTube/Making Shorts. But yeah, Joel Haver on YouTube is pretty well where all my main stuff is.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Did anyone have any other questions? No, we're good. All right, man. Thank you again. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye.